All right, so let's look at inputting stuff from the user in Python. So if you want to get stuff from the user, there's handily an example in here, which I'll just pull up and we can look at. So what do I expect this first line of code to do? I don't know that. Maybe. Sure. So this is a name. What's the name equals part of this?
16-digit. It looks like just opening up a slot, calling a name, and prompting something. 16-digit crypto.
It looks like
Okay.
it's going to ask you what your name is.
Yes, it looks like it's going to ask you what your name is, but how is that actually executed? So if you wrote name equals Steve, what would that be in terms of a kind of, is that like a variable declaration? Is that an initialization? Is it a function? Is it a method? Is it an object? What is that thing?
It's a variable, but you get to decide the value of the variable by inputting something.
Okay, so this is a variable, right? Assignment or initialization. There aren't variable declarations in Python. It doesn't have them because it has that dynamic typing, right? So you don't have to tell it to expect a string called name, because name is just fine. It just sets aside a little bit of memory, and if you try to put a string in there, it'll change the amount of memory to what it needs to store a string. And then here, this guy is calling the input function, right? You guys all recognize that? Right? There's a function named input that's getting done to the string, what is your name, /n, right? And if I hit run, I'm expecting it to prompt me for what is my name, right? So it said, what is your name? And then the spot to type is on the next line. So if I tell it my name is Joe, oops, oops, hang on, Joe, enter.
Enter to leave the text box, enter again to go to the next line.
I don't know why it did that. It got a little bogged down. Is one of you doing horrible math on the server? You guys recognize this is a shared server, right? You guys see that? Like Rappel.it is some company somewhere, right? Or more likely some person somewhere. And they have a server, right? And I'm running code on this server, but probably so are other people. So sometimes it takes a second for my code to get in the queue. Does that make sense? So if you all are cranking on some massive math project over here, you might be tying up a bunch of processors, and I might not be able to get my hi Joe back for a second, right? So, what's the \n in there do? New line, you think? So if I delete it and hit run, I expect the little type box to be on the same line, right? And I can type in my name, and then what's this second line doing?
Very simple job. Printing your name.
Yeah, it's like, okay, hi, string, and then it's putting in the string that's stored in name into where the into where the percentage sign was. You guys see that? Another thing we could probably do in there is we could probably do hi, comma, plus. Hi, comma, space, plus name. Maybe this will work. Seems like it works. What's the advantage to the other thing?
You can use it in both types of input, not just string combination.
Yeah, also you can put that string part in the middle of a line. So you can do like, hi Joe, or hi whatever, welcome to Python. Right, and now if I run, I'm expecting it to ask for my name, which I'll enter, and then it'll put that Joe, right, the string that it was waiting for, it'll put it into the middle of that line. You guys see that? Cool, kind of, sort of? Okay. All right. So this is kind of the input function. If you wanted to know more about the input function, where would you go?
Internet.
Yeah. Google Python 3 input function, right? Like Python 3 input. And see some stuff. So like, oh, it's a built-in function. Whoa. There are lots of built-in functions, right? Like absolute value. I don't know what those are. Binary, Boolean, bunch of stuff, right? Do you know what any of these things do?
Float.
Oh, I know what a float is. Like, I don't know what all these things are, but I think I know what some of them are. Format seems like it would be a cool idea. What does it do?
Make it look nice.
Probably formats things. Cool. Right, so if I want to find, what was I looking for originally here? Input. So if I scroll down to input, it's like, okay, so if the argument prompt is present, it's written as standard output without a trailing new line. The function then reads a line from the input, converts it to a string, and returns that. Okay. So it does basically what I thought it does, right? It takes a string, and it puts that string in the command line, and then expects you to enter some stuff, and then restores that as a string. Does it matter that it's as a string here?
Yeah, assuming
Because that's what you're putting in.
Okay, so probably.
if you-
Reason for probably is that there's one obvious way you could try to break this.
if you multiply it afterwards with still a number, it would multiply properly. The string will just print 3 times.
Yeah, so that's a reasonable thing. So if I said print, so if I wanted to print name times 3, right? So maybe let me ask that. Let me change my code a little bit. I'm going to say
Oh, highlighted it.
number is input. What is your favorite number? Right? And then I don't need this line about hi, welcome to whatever. And then I'm going to say print your number, right? Not name. Name doesn't do anything. Times 3. You guys see this? And my guess is that this might break things. So if I put 7, I'm expecting it to print 21, right?
Nice. GG.
What the hell?
Hey, 777, that's lucky.
Yeah, remember that was a string type, so multiplying by 3 doesn't multiply the value of the...
It makes 3.
It prints it 3 times. So if you wanted to actually multiply it by 3, you might want to like try typecasting. And it looks like int is a function. Do I expect this to typecast correctly?
It looks like it should.
Seems like it. Maybe. 7's still my favorite number. Cool, I got 21. Possible problems with this?
Type text instead of a number.
Invalid literal for int with base 10 high.
Oh, so
What's the issue there?
Make
It's
it a
print
float.
function.
No, it's high as in doesn't have an integer value, right? You can't typecast high to an integer. It doesn't know how to do it.
my favorite number is 3.1415.
They have
Yeah, so another thing is you don't have to necessarily typecast to an integer. You could typecast to a float. This is
Put in pi.
right now you can put in a decimal,
Put in pi.
right? But you still can't. What can't you still do? Still can't put in text, right?
Well, 'cause Because that's not a number, so it's gonna hate you for it.
Yeah. So another thing, another reason you might care it's a string. If my favorite number is octothorpe pi, what might I expect this to do?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Because of the way it will work.
I might expect this to break because octothorpe is the comment character, right? You guys recognize that?
Oh. And it's only a single character. For combination.
Yeah, so my expectation, right, is that it would try to read this and then be like, well, that's commented out. I'm just going to stop. And it might hang there or something.
Because it cut out the parentheses too.
But it's getting stored as a string. You guys see that? So the octothorpe isn't acting as a comment character because it's inside a set of quotes, right? Have I told you guys about injection attacks? Okay, so this is the idea of an injection hack. So, or an injection attack. You are allowed to enter information in lots of places on the internet, right? Lots of those places will take the information that you enter and do something with it, right? It'll run some code on that.
Like Facebook.
Yeah, like when you go to log into Facebook, right? You type in your email address, and then it goes to its database and looks up that email address, right? So that thing that you entered is getting some code done to it. One way you could screw with other people is to enter code in the right language into the input boxes, and then maybe it would execute on the back end, right? So this is the heart of what's called a SQL injection attack. The really popular thing to type into a, kind of any, where's my Google? Oh, perfect. This is a great example.
Can you break
So here's a username and a password lookup. This is the system that we keep all of the curriculum in here at Columbia. I'm not going to. Please don't.
Oh,
It is entirely possible that if you type in something here that's not a valid username but is valid like database code, that you could get it to break.
So,
Yeah, like drop table is the usual, but you could try like quit, right? Like I don't know if quit's a command that whatever's on the back end of this might recognize, but it might be. Cool? Does that kind of make sense? Don't do that. Not two things that I care about. But that's exactly what I'm trying to run here, right? I'm trying to type in Python code and get it to break the Python that's running in the background. You see that? And it looks like Python is actually pretty well protected against that because it stores the input as a string specifically. If it let it be a dynamic typing, right? If it let dynamic typing run rampant, then you might be able to really screw things up. Does that make sense?